the Seattle Sickle Cell Task Force. Foxy Davidson is part of the Metro Seattle Sickle Cell Disease Task Force. The task force was established in 1994 as a private nonprofit organization. It is a grassroots community-based organization committed to helping those individuals living with sickle cell disease in the Seattle community. They work in partnerships with schools, institutions, nonprofit organizations, and healthcare providers to provide sickle cell education about sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait to the community. Mamie Randall and Craig Randall have worked with the task force as part of Craig's bone marrow transplant journey. First of all, I'll say good morning to Foxy, to Craig and Mamie Randall. Thank you for joining us on today. We sincerely appreciate you taking time out to participate in this conference. Ms. Davidson, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for letting us come and share. What a great opportunity. So much. I love coming to places where we get to have education around sickle. So I would really appreciate you guys inviting us. We are the Sickle Cell Task Force, or I represent the Sickle Cell Task Force. Ken West is our president, who also has sickle cell, lives here in Washington State. Really, when I was asked to do this presentation, I knew that I was not the one who was really going to do this alone, because there are people in our community who have been through therapy and have so much wisdom to offer on this subject. And so I'm so happy, Mamie, that you were willing to join me today to talk about your journey a little bit and what you've learned. And what I'll say is, as a community-based organization here in Seattle, Mamie has taught me personally, and us as a task force, the need for CBOs to really think through how to support someone through transplant and therapy. What we've learned is we were very supportive when people were ready to begin this process, wanted to be there and support them in the beginning, or helping them at least get to the therapy. But what Mamie has really taught us is there's so much support that is needed during therapy and after therapy. And in all transparency, we don't have those programs in place right now, but we certainly are learning from Mamie's story and others in our community the need for people on the other side. Though they may not have sickle anymore, they still are a part of our community. And so there are things that we should be doing to really continue to support them, whether those are support groups or checking in, or really supporting mental health and wellness, financial support, those things that we just have learned because Mamie has been vulnerable enough to share her story. So I really want to pass this on to Mamie and Craig today to really give this time to them so that they can share their wisdom. And I might come back on the end depending on how much time we have. But really, Mamie, thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Craig. Good to see both of y'all. And I'm gonna pass it on to you.
Hello, my name is Mamie, and this is my son, Craig. Craig is completely healed of sickle cell. He was born with sickle cell SC, and there's a lot to be said about sickle cell. I'm really, first of all, I want to say I'm thankful for everything that has happened positively for him, and a lot of that came because I was taught by the Sickle Cell Task Force during the journey on what to say and how to fight, and in crisis and all of that. And I literally found out about the opportunity for bone marrow transplant because of the community connection. And I remember when they were doing palliative care, they called us in for palliative care and to prepare him for the end of life when he was 12 years old. They explained to me that he was going to be, there was really nothing that he could do. And we had been in the hospital for 6 weeks. And at that time, I had received just a text message about bone marrow transplant success. And I remember breaking into the room where the doctors were on break and saying, "What about this?" and challenging them to be part of that. And so fast forward, you know, I have 6 children, and 4 of them have the trait, and he has he got the disease. And we have 20 minutes, so hurry up. So so we transferred him over to Children's Hospital and began this journey. His sister, Sophia Randall, was 100% perfect match all across the board. And I'm so very thankful for that. But everyone in my family got tested and we only had 1 match. And so this guy began his journey at 12, and now he's 18. Yes, you can talk anytime, you can interrupt me, okay? Throughout the journey, before the age of 12, they said that he would possibly not ever have a crisis. Well, his crisis began at 6 months and never stopped. And so that's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of what the information that we got from our doctors. Moving forward, the transplant was terrible. You want to talk about that for a minute or two? The transplant itself, or sickle cell? You can say whatever. Okay. So he's never been one for a talk. Pardon me? I didn't hear that. Okay. So, but what I really wanted to focus on was the when we got to Children's Hospital, you know, you sign up for everything. I remember my pastor asking me, well, what are you going to do and how are you going to do this? Because I worked up until a year pre-transplant. I was able to work up until he was 12 years old, and then I had to take the year off because he became so sick. But I remember thinking that, well, we'll just lose the house and live in the RV and whatever. So we got community support. I got support from my church. And we were able to figure that piece out. It was very hard, but we were able to figure that piece out. And I knew that what we were facing, I signed off, and they told us all of these different things, and you know, he had a really good chance of survival. But I guess I really want to focus on the need and the absence for just the mental health piece, because all throughout the journey, we faced things that were new, we faced things that we didn't expect. And I consider myself to be a pretty strong person, and so was he, mentally, socially, and emotionally. But the impact of the bone marrow transplant was so severe because during the process, he's given so many steroids, and your body responds to the different treatments and the medicine dance that he has to go through so differently that there were several things that we weren't prepared for. One of the things that he said for him was the hardest thing for him was the thought that he would never be able to play football, because he played football up until the age of 10, and then he was taken off the football team, and he was told by the doctors, you'll never be able to play, and that, you know, consider another sport like golf or something. And so that was, you know, we were navigating him through that, trying to get him to not worry about that dream, and just, you know, be thankful that you can now play in the snow and that type of thing. But it really was going back to school. I guess it was what, 2 years post-transplant.
Why I went back to school
When did you go back to school after the transplant?
I think it was a year after.
maybe a year after transplant, he went back to school, but he went back to school back in the wheelchair. So he left school to go to do this transplant and was put back into the wheelchair because of the avascular necrosis and the impact that it had on his body. So at that point, there was really no one to talk to about what to do with that and how to face that. And so when you have this child that has lived all their life with sickle cell, and then you go through chemotherapy and the awful effects of chemotherapy, and taking showers and where the water hurts so much she's screaming, and it just that whole thing, and the several operations that I think you had about 12 or 13 operations going down your throat and all of that. And then you think, okay, but we're almost there. We'll be out of this hospital and you'll go back to school and things will be normal. Maybe you can't play football, but things will be normal. And then to put him in the wheelchair and to have his supportive team members and school and whatnot have to deal with the same thing. We weren't prepared for avascular necrosis. And so the mental impact on that was severe. And it was really hard for our family. It was as if we traded one disease for the other without the community support, without very much support. And then you ask yourself, why? Why did I do this? Maybe we should have, kept the road that we were on. But obviously he is much better, but I do want to, as I'm sharing, we really have to do better addressing. Okay. Obviously we have to do, we want to do better. I want to be able to tell the families what to look for. Like there was an app that I downloaded that helps me to manage his medications. That was tremendous help for me. And there was little things along the way that really helped. And if I'd have known about the shot that he could get, for the next 3 months, or it took like 6 months of getting those shots to help him recover with the AVN, he wouldn't have suffered so much depression. The depression was horrible. And it was really hard for me to say, hey, but we'll get through this, because he was back in a wheelchair. But now he is so much better. I have absolutely no regrets. He's 100% sickle cell free. If you look at, those are our pictures there, and he played football last night. He's, my gosh, you want to talk about that? You guys speak up.
Talk about which part?
Any part, whatever.
I'm enjoying playing football now.
Talk up, they can't hear you.
Said I'm enjoying playing football now. I'm a running back for North Kitsap High School and corner. And yeah, I don't know what to say.
Well, I can say that to me, that's an absolute miracle, because they told him it would never happen. The doctors, all of the doctors said that it was too risky, and he's in the 12th grade and he's playing. But if there's a way that, don't do that. If there's a way that we could set this up, the whole process up, where the families receive supportive mental health and counseling all throughout. I think throughout this entire journey, we didn't have that. And as African Americans, or at least as this particular family, it's not something that we do. It's not something that we participate in. So I don't know where John is, but John was the, my God, John Mansambe. I cannot say enough for that young man. He came to the Ronald McDonald House. He came and he told his story while Craig was going through the story. That was so impactful. And I think he was the one who began to encourage him about the AVN and all of that. And so just having that in place and having just that little bit of support really carried us through. But when you have Craig, you see how he doesn't talk now, but when he was going through that and with the moon face and all of that and all of the teasing and all of the, you know, because he's showing this picture of John Mansambe. Anyway, when I'm sorry, they can't see it, honey. That's why you can't see. Huh? I'm sorry. You can't. He was showing his picture of John Mansambe before and after in his phone. But I want to say that it has to be like a doctor's appointment. It has to be wrapped in from the very beginning so that it becomes a routine that is done with the family and with the child, because you don't want to get through all this and then have your son or daughter commit suicide. That's how serious the depression became. And right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, it's the truth. When you're told that you went through all of that and then you still can't have a life. So I just want to advocate for that piece, because I'm going to turn it back over to Foxy. Again, we are on the other side, and I highly recommend it, but just make sure that you have all of the pieces and that you have a good match. That's my story.
Oh, thank you, Mamie. Thank you, Craig. I know you don't speak too much, but that's okay. Super glad that you are on the other side. But you have taught us, honestly, as a task force, a lot, and continue to teach us so much. And I hope that people here have heard something that was helpful. To John Masimbe, who's not here with us, he was going to be able to join us. But one thing we did know, just as a heads up for people, is even if as a task force we didn't have programs, we did know people who had been through it. And so just even if you can't build out anything else, is just making sure that families get connected to someone who's been through this process, who is willing to share the dark times with. And John in our community is a young man who has been through the process and was willing to mentor and shepherd and continues to do that for those who are going through making the choice to do therapy. So again, I think we learn from one another by choosing to share. So I just want to say again to Mamie and Craig, thank you for being willing to share even the dark sides, right, of the depression and suicide things. There's John. I love that you want to add all the things. He wants to make sure we see John.
That was before and after. You can see, you can see, can you tell that you can see the moon face? Oh gosh.
Oh yeah. Now we're seeing other things on his phone. But we know our time is just about up, but we want to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for Mamie and Craig for simply being honest and showing vulnerability, even around those parts that you sometimes want to keep private. I think that's beautiful. And I think what the best thing that we can say, and I said this in the chat, is really mental wealth. I call it mental wealth. Support should begin from beginning.
Yes.
That people with sickle cell should have support, and not just the individual, but the family. And they should have it from the beginning and find creative ways. If it's not going to be, there's so many ways to have therapy. And so we want to really encourage that we really consider that. And then from beginning all the way through transplant, lifelong. Let's just put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah,
That kind of support, even for siblings, we've learned that
Yeah,
they
and
need
I wanna-
support as
I
well.
want to say there's one thing that I feel so very important. The child life specialist and the clowns and all of those people at Children's Hospital, they were like doctors.
Mm,
And like he was a drummer, and he really, and there was a music therapist that came in, and
And they
there
also had nurses that came specifically to play games with you, like video games with you. That's fine.
that was I was all about let's keep up with school, because I didn't want him to lose a year. But those child life specialists and those nurses, because we didn't have the mental piece really strong, but they were at least supportive in the hospital.
yeah.
So I just want to say that, keep funding that piece of the program.
Mm, yeah. All right, our time is up. We want to honor that. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we're passing it back on to your host.